Hi, it's Dr. Gilbert here on Monday, a little late, 12:45 instead of 12:30. Sorry about that. Rachel and I were trying to work out some technical difficulties, but I just don't have enough bandwidth in my computer skills to figure that out. So sorry, I wanted Rachel to be here so badly. We couldn't get her mic was working on her end, but I couldn't hear her. And anyway, then you couldn't hear her. And so hopefully you can hear me. But anyway, hello from Oregon Weight and Wellness. And Rachel, we miss you. She sends everybody your love, and we'll be, hopefully, we can figure it out next time. But we are going to continue our conversation on Michael Pollan's book, Food Rules. And we are on chapter 36, and I'm just going to read the whole chapter because it's very short. Chapter 36 says, don't eat breakfast cereals that change the color of the milk. Don't eat, I'm going to say that again because it's worth repeating. Don't eat breakfast cereals that change the color of the milk. This should go without saying. Such cereals are highly processed and full of refined carbohydrates as well as chemical additives. Okay, this reminds me of a couple of funny stories. When I was a kid, we ate cereal. Oh, Rachel's here. She says, hi, friends. Wish I was there live with you, but she is here with us. So she's going to be typing in some comments. But when I was a kid, okay, we ate cereal for breakfast quite a bit of the time, maybe not on weekends, but I remember getting up early in the morning. I was the first one up always. There were 5 of us kids, and we got up and got ourselves ready for school. And this was probably 5th grade. This memory is coming from. I remember getting up, going downstairs and pouring the milk over my cereal, and then coming back upstairs and, taking my shower or whatever, getting ready for school, and then going back downstairs and eating my soggy cereal because I loved my cereal soggy. Don't ask me why, but I love soggy cereal. And back in those days, our parents let us have 3 different kinds of cereal. Number 1, we had cornflakes. Number 2, we got to have Rice Krispies. And number 3, if we were, lucky, we'd have Life cereal. So we had 3 different kinds of cereal. That was about, Cheerios, maybe 4. So we had Cheerios, cornflakes, Rice Krispies, and Life cereal. Every once in a while, Life cereal. And beyond that, my dad called every other cereal SHIT cereal, if I can say that. Bleep. SH bleep T cereal. Because they were loaded with sugar. But little did we know the Rice Krispies was sugar too. Anyway, so the point is, Michael Pollan makes, don't eat cereal that changes the color of the milk. And to his point there, it's because the sugar is changing the color of the milk. Rachel says, well, half the time the cereal is so sugar-coated that it hurts the roof of your mouth if you don't get it soggy first. Good point, Rachel. That's right. Yeah, you got to soak some of the sugar off of it, right, into the milk. Get it soggy first. That's right. Excuse me. I have a little froggy throat today, and some of you may know why, but I feel great. I feel great, and it's because I didn't have sugar this morning in my cereal. Guess what I had this morning for breakfast? Not cereal. I had bone broth for breakfast, and I had cauliflower in it, and then I had some over easy eggs in that. So it was actually really good. But anyway, back to the cereal. So the point is, what is coloring the milk from these cereals. And it's certainly not blueberries, probably. It's the artificial coloring. The food coloring is making the color of the milk, is changing the color of the milk, right? And yeah, so Rachel was making the point earlier to me that, she was thinking about other things that maybe are colors that they shouldn't be. For example, why is mint chocolate chip ice cream green? And should it be green? And her point is that, yes, mint leaves are green, but by the time they process that and take, you get the mint oil and you put the oil in the ice cream, it really doesn't change that ice cream to green. It's green food coloring that's making it green. So unfortunately, with all these processed foods, we're also putting in food coloring, which is not great for us. It's just chemicals. It's really not good. They're not natural, not natural food products that are coloring the food. It is unnatural chemical coloring. So food additives, not good for us. So, yeah. But even if Janet Friesen, good hair day, Dr. Gilbert. Thank you. I brushed it out a little bit. Thank you. So, but even if I'm going to say, even if the color of your milk does not change, I'm going to challenge you as to whether that cereal is really good for you. Because unfortunately, the majority of cereals out there, I'm going to go out on a limb and say 99% are processed, and the grain has most of its nutrient value taken away from it. We've talked about this before. A grain in its whole form has the bran, it has the protein, it has some fat in it, it has the carbohydrate in it. And when it is broken, then that bran is stripped away. And actually they take the fat out of that too, because if they leave the fat in there, then it's going to spoil more quickly. And then it gets crushed and pulverized to smithereens and bleached most of the time, and then pressed into a flake or whatever. And it's really is devoid of nutrient value. And then they fortify it, right, by sprinkling a few vitamins and minerals back in. Maybe they sprinkle a little fiber in there too, back in. But it's never the same, is it? It's never the same, and it never has the same nutrient density as it did in its whole form. So, yeah, and the majority of cereals aren't out there. They unfortunately, when we eat them, because they don't have the fiber anymore, they turn to sugar like this. And unfortunately, that usually spikes our blood sugar, and then it requires us to use more insulin than maybe we would need. And it doesn't bring much nutritional value to it. It really doesn't even keep us full for very long, because simple carbohydrates really move quickly through your stomach. You don't have a lot of staying power. They don't stick to your ribs, like a more denser, a heavier nutrient value breakfast. So, are there any great cereals out there? So what would be the mark of a good cereal? Well, I guess all the things that we're talking about, looking at the ingredient label and making sure sugar isn't in there, hopefully it only has a couple of ingredients, less than 5 in the ingredient list. Looking at the carb fiber ratio might be a good way to choose a cereal. So for example, when I am looking at package, if I'm going to buy it, then I look at the carbohydrate, total carbohydrates, and I look at the amount of fiber, and I don't do a subtraction problem. I do a division problem. So I divide the total carbs by the fiber, and if I get an answer of 6 or less than 6, then I know that there's probably enough fiber in that, whatever food that is, to mitigate those carbohydrates in my system. But yeah, that might be a topic for another conversation. But anyway, but cereal's so good and it's so yummy and it's so quick and easy. Well, you know what? There are probably some other easy, not, easy breakfasts that we can do that don't take a lot of time. Eggs are always great for breakfast. Not everybody wants to eat eggs. You could make a whole grain pancake actually, and if you don't want to spend all the time or a waffle, if you don't want to spend all the time in the morning, you could actually make it ahead of time, like on a Sunday, a bunch of them, throw them in the freezer, and then have your own, pop, pop it in the toaster and have your own Lego My Eggo contest with your kids. I remember that commercial. Do you? Pancakes, someone asked. Yeah, pancakes with whole grain. I'm talking about whole grain flour or almond flour. You can even use coconut flour. I made a pancake with cottage cheese and eggs. It was actually really good. But what are some other great breakfasts that you can think of? And sometimes we have to get outside the breakfast box. Sometimes we think what are breakfast foods? Yeah, Rachel says the pancake with berries and walnuts and nut butter. Yeah, that's a very dense, yummy breakfast that's going to give me staying power, stick to my ribs, and keep me full until lunch. Right, so I don't have to snack in between. So a lot of people might have a yogurt with berries and walnuts or something like that. That's another great breakfast that'll stick to your ribs a little bit more than a cereal. Um, so, there's a question coming in. What base is used for the pancakes? Well, I mean, you could use an almond flour. You could use a whole grain flour. I bought some einkorn flour, which is kind of an ancient grain, which is going to be higher in fiber. And I actually used that in some cooking last week. It was absolutely delicious. I used to buy Bob's red mill flour. You could use oatmeal, which is going to have a little bit more fiber in it than a white flour, of course. Rachel is suggesting chia seed pudding with berries. That's awesome. And maybe with your pudding, you're using coconut milk in there and berries and chia seeds. And that's going to give you some fat. That's going to give you the delicious berries. That's going to give you fiber and protein and, again, a lot of staying power. So many more nutrient dense options than just cereal for breakfast in the morning. And I'm not trying to make people feel bad if you're eating cereal for breakfast, but we want to help you question, like, oh, why am I? Is cereal my only option? And when did I start believing that I could only have cereal for breakfast? Or when did cereal become a breakfast item? That is a really good question. And actually, it goes back about 120 years ago when Dr. Kellogg and actually it was C.W. Post, they were kind of neck and neck bringing on the first breakfast cereals. Dr. Kellogg had a sanitarium where people went to get healthier anyway, and his brother kind of fell upon well, Dr. Kellogg was making this gruel with corn, and anyway, it got run through a press or flattened down. Anyway, it was a surreptitious finding, and all of a sudden, oh, that's kind of a flake, and that kind of looks a little cool. So they served flakes for breakfast anyway, and out popped all these breakfast cereals after that. But it never used to be a thing. Maybe oatmeal or hot cereal, but cold cereal never used to be a thing until the turn of the century. And then, of course, we have a myriad of cereals, and then we have sugar coating on cereal, sugar on top of sugar on top of sugar. But yeah, so that's when it started, and now we've had 120 years of breakfast cereal, and we gotta. And are we healthier? This is the question. And how can we get ourselves? Oh, sorry about that. And are there other options? What are our other options? We got to think outside the cereal box, right? Yeah. All right. Donna says boiled eggs are a quick breakfast. That's exactly right. Boiled eggs are a great breakfast. Rachel says, I use a mix of chickpeas, spelt, buckwheat, almond, and vital wheat gluten for her pancakes. I think that sounds great. I'm on the recipe for that. Donna also suggests throw some vegetables in your scrambled eggs. That's a great breakfast too. So many great options out there other than the cereals. And don't get me wrong, I love cereal. I was a cereal eater probably way up until, I have to say, probably 5 years ago. And there are some cereals that do pass that carb fiber test, but there are not very many of them. So anyway, well, Rachel says roasted veggies and chickpeas, make it on the weekend and eat it on and off all week. That's a great idea. All right. Send us some other of your options for out of the box breakfast ideas. And then since we're doing what's for dinner, what is for my dinner? Well, I'm going to have the same thing that I had for breakfast because you may have noticed my horse is a little throat. My throat is a little hoarse. So I'm nursing this viral illness, and I'm going to nurse it with my bone broth and and the cauliflower. And gosh, I might have another egg because that always feels great on my throat. Also, I'm drinking my green tea with my ginger all day. So, all right. Well, great talking with you. Sorry, Rachel, that I couldn't figure out how to get you on here. I know it would have been a very engaging conversation, but we'll do it again next week, and hopefully with all the bugs out. Pun intended. All right. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.